Dungeon
Let's talk
Dumans.
lore.
Let's
Welcome
talk
back from our
lore.
brief
A podcast.
intermission.
Intermission.
Yeah, Chris,
I'm Chris. That's Spencer. Roll high and subscribe.
roll high and subscribe. Chris, what are we talking about today? We just talked about tables.
We talked about having our randomness that our tables of rolling and seeing what happens. Now we're going to talk about how we can incorporate that more fluidly into the story, into the session, into the tale we're weaving. How do you like to try and do that, Spencer?
I said before, so the randomness. So the way that I do my DMing and my prep is that we play an open world, but the whole world itself sort of runs like a normal dungeon. The way that I do my prep is that I create the tables and then I randomize each area that you could go to. So imagine a dungeon. I have 10 rooms. I have now 10 I have now a table of 10. I'm going to make the table of 10 two puzzles, two fights, two this, two that, to the other thing, and that's the randomness. And then I have A, B, C, D of the rooms. So when you open it, I know when I roll it, or I'll say, "Hey, Chris," during the "Hey, Lone Star, roll me a D10." You don't. It's to see what room you're going into. That will tell the player it's going to be random. They'll know that I have prepared it, but that I don't know of perchance what is going to be coming up. They roll it, and we go off of my table. However, there is that brief moment of, and I like to call it disengaging or disengagement. If a player is running from something and they get to the door, I want to run out of this room. I just saw two people die. I need to get the hell out of here. There is someone following us. Let's get to the door and open. Hey, Chris, roll me a d20 and see what's on the other side. If I have to scrounge around for that table, if I'm not prepared, that disengages, and that randomness sort of hurts, in my perspective, the engagement for the players. What do you do for your random?
Well, I think we do something very similar, and a lot of that is in the prep that we do. Is the tables or the locations that we're setting up, we're trying to make them all fit in, and I think most DMs do that. Is they try to make everything seem like one cohesive unit of a dungeon or a city or wherever you are. I think the key to really getting that deep immersion is having some time to allow the story to continue after you ask them for that roll, so that you have time to get everything set up. The story can continue, but you can be looking at your table, have them roll that. Say they're running down the path away from something. I'm going to go run to the door to bang on it. I'm like, okay, roll your d20. That's what's going to be in the next room. Okay, what are you doing when you're going to the door? All right, and you're checking your table and sorting everything else out while they're describing how they're interacting with the door. So give the player something to do while you're
searching.
That downtime, that the dead time would be there. And then taking the lead from them of whatever they're doing, interacting directly with that action, with the result of what the table is. Say they rolled and it's a completely empty room. So they bang on the door and they say they're going to be banging on the door and try and kick it open. All right, so they bang on the door and they kick it open. They hear an echo go echoing through the room, and an eerie silence or a breeze comes in. So give them something for you to work off of when that randomness does come in.
Here's an idea. Chris,
Yeah.
there's a fire. You are a character.
Okay.
You are in a dungeon. There is a fire behind you, and there is a door in front of you. The fire is getting very hot.
Okay.
What do you do?
No windows. There's only one door. Fire's hot. I don't have anything around me that I could put it out with, so I'm probably gonna get out of here. Go to the door. So I will go to the door, check for the door handle. Since I know there's a fire here, I'll check the doorknob to see if the doorknob's hot on the other side, and listen to the door.
You roll me a perception.
Okay.
And
I roll my perception.
And that perception is good enough. Passive perception. You don't hear anything from the other side, but the door, when you push your ear up to it, is cold.
All right, so I'll push the door open and walk through.
Okay. Now I have nothing planned.
Right.
So what Chris is saying is, as you're opening the door, you look back and you see the flames are now bursting towards you, towards the door, as the fire is trying to eat up the oxygen, and it's flowing towards you. And in the flame, you see something of your past. What is it that you see? At that moment, the DM can go look for the tables and figure out what the hell is going to be in that room. It gives the player
Before you say that, so as you start to walk, you open the door. All right, roll me a d20. Okay, I roll it, give you that result, and then you do that whole explanation, leaving them there. Yeah, it works great.
Right? That's a pretty fucking solid. Excuse my French for those of you who are under 18, or whatever PG is. That's a pretty sick way of handling things.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to remember that. Oh, hey, you walk into a bar and it's filled with people. You notice your shoelace is untied. It could. It doesn't have to be like know, but
anything, or it could be like, roll me your d20, and you notice that your party member's shoes are untied.
Yeah.
You notice that sword that was once yours tucked inside of their jacket.
Letting the players get involved is such a strong way of keeping them engaged during that lookup. Who the hell, Chris? You're like a guru. I had no idea you had the power here. I at the very beginning, if you remember, and I'm gonna try to quote myself. I said the problem with tables that I have is that when I look through them, they are disengaging to the players. But here you are coming with a perfect way to keep them engaged. And what a better way than to ask them to talk about themselves or their players. Could you imagine if you had a warlock and it was the same situation. The fire was coming. They opened the door and they looked into the fire and they saw their
patron.
Their patron, and the patron said something. Now, obviously, you'd have to, the patron would only be talking to the group, and you'd have to say the patron says something to you. But we're not going to, metagame. You just have it say it to you, and the group will know, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
That is really an excellent recommendation. And for those of you who agree, roll high and subscribe. But
you can also do that for any random encounter too. So you're on a trail and roll me your random encounter, and you get a fight with, or not necessarily a fight. And this is how I do my tables. I just put creatures, and how you interact with them dictates how they interact with you. Like the guards, in my head they're going to be super friendly, but you guys want to kill them all. So say
I was trying. I was trying to become part of the group. I thought that that's what they wanted, but indeed they did not.
Yeah.
That was my fault.
So it's like you're walking on the trail. All right, roll me your D12. All right. So as you're coming down the path, you see some berries and a little pool of water and something glinting in the pool of water. Um, and they'll let them interact in some way. Or like what you said, you see the fire, and what do you see in the fire? Or uh, how do you start? How do you walk down the path? What side of the path do you walk on? Why do you walk over there? Let them. I really love the idea that you brought up of asking the players questions.
Oh yeah,
Let them talk about themselves.
that's that's also one of
Yeah.
the things that I had sort of. So for like the random, the topic here is to like how you how you do random play, but keep it moving, keep it
Mm.
engaging. One of the things that I always like to do is when I am randomly, one of the things that I started to do, and I didn't realize I started to do this until you brought this out, which is the same thing. We get into a room and it smells like moss or rot. Chris, go ahead, or Aaron, go ahead and describe the
The room.
smell and the
Mm-hmm.
room. Yeah, describe the room.
I love that.
Let the players describe the room.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can, as a DM, let's just say your random encounter said that the room is full of bad guys. Well, there's a corner in the room where they sprawl out from, whatever. Um,
The other little thing that I tip that I always love to have is anything that comes up on your random table is canon, and you have to figure out how to incorporate that into your story. I was running what was it? Dragon of Icespire Peak, and I got a beautiful random table book that I was very excited to use and didn't really look into it too well ahead of time. And randomly, there's a bunch of ogres pulling crates behind them, and they're walking up a mountain to, spoilers, to the giant castle where the dragon was. And I'm like, okay, this is canon now. How the hell am I going to incorporate this into the story? I gave them something to distract them while I figured it out, and it just so happened to be they were had cages of slaves that had some other connection to the rest of the town or to some other part of the story. So it's every if you do let it truly be random, everything that's in there has a purpose in there, is part of the greater story that the players are creating.
it's so cool. I mean, okay, so when you do your randomness, you don't always and like need to create a random event that you're unprepared for. You don't always need to rely on your players, but they are there and it's
Mm-hmm.
easy and it doesn't always have to be tell me you look into the fire and uh you look into the fire and you see your maker, or you look into the fire and you see a shadow of your mom, or you look into the fire and you see something, or the fire, you look into the fire. It doesn't have to be necessarily relative to the player's backstory. I like to have some things linked to the
Mm-hmm.
backstories because that creates a whole nother topic that we can talk about maybe next time about players' backstories and how you interweave them. That's a good place to do it, but it could be something as simple as the fire's coming. You open the door, you run through, and you feel yourself, um, or you turn around, and you see the flames, and it reminds you of an experience you had when you were younger. Share that.
Yeah, I love that.
It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be anything more than that, and it also
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be a meaningful thing like your
Right.
patron tells you to run into the fire and die.
Yeah.
you know, um, that's really cool, and I think that's cool.
I also love to reveal little bits of players' backstories to everyone else in moments like that. Like give the little clue, the breadcrumb for the other players to get suspicious.
Oh,
and let
yeah.
them start to squirm.
That's
I enjoy that.
I think that's so. How do you summarize this, Chris?
Don't let the tables bog down your experience. Give yourself time to incorporate the table or the result of your table into the story by bringing your players in to fill that space.
It's not just tables.
Yep, not just tables. Any randomness or any part of your story, any progression in your story. Bring your players in to fill that void. Let them talk.
Right.
Ask them questions. Give them the space to have the conversations.
I always say Dungeon Master preparation, I always used to overdo it to 100%. It should be 60%. In my opinion, for having players of 4 or 5 at a table, they should each encompass about 10%. So you can use them to tell your story. Use them to tell your story. Yeah. Use them when you need them. They're there.
To tell their story.
Want to do that. So exactly.
Yeah.
Even if the guy turns around and sees the flame and runs through and closes the door, wow. Booterbot 4000 or 3001 since he had his Booter. For those of you who don't know, Booterbot is a robot from 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, no, 100 years ago, brought to that came through a time warp to today's. So instead of Booterbot 5000, there's Booterbot 3000. Let's just say Booterbot 3000 closed the door. Booterbot, that was a narrow escape. It reminded you of tell the group while you figure this out, or and keep everyone engaged. That's the perfect way to do it because everyone wants to hear what Booterbot has to say.
Yeah.
I love it, and the way I would summarize this particular Let's Talk Lore episode is with randomness, and if you're a DM and you're worried about ruining player engagement or hurting the engagement of the players with your random tables or encounters or however you want to play it, you can just play with one dice and you can just roll and just see where it takes you. Use the engagement to fight the disengagement, as Chris was saying, because that's the perfect beauty of the solution, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping everyone engaged is the way that you keep everyone engaged. It seems I didn't even, when we first started talking about this, I was like, this is going to be impossible for us to talk about. It's so simple. My God.
I like to think about it as distracting the players so that I can sort out what to throw at them next.
Yeah, and I like it because I have like 10 pages of notes that I've made on Excel and Word, and I haven't numbered them, and everything's there, but I don't know.
Don't know where it is.
Yeah, it's there somewhere, and I find it too late, but whatever. It's okay. So there you go. How do you keep players engaged during random encounters and using random tables?
Use the players.
Yeah, use the players. Chris, that was a good conversation about it. That was awesome.
This is Rena. Rena rolled low during death saves and didn't get healed by his group. Don't be a Rena. Roll high and subscribe.